2011. I'm joined by Councilmember Labange and Councilmember Huizar. We have a few items on today's agenda. I think there are two items that I don't view as controversial. We can take those up, say, as if they were on the consent calendar. If you could please read items 2 and 3.
Certainly. Item 2 is motion Parks Alarcon relative to alternate sources and methods of satisfying mandated public notice requirements. Item 3 is motion Perry Smith on potential actions the Essex Commission can take to complete its review of commissioner appointments within the 45-day window that council has for consideration.
Okay. Seeing that there are no questions by my colleagues, then without objection, those two items will be deemed approved. That brings us to item okay, so I have to be more specific. Okay, item 2, we'll approve the motion and ask the council president to refer the item to the Intergovernmental Relations Committee and ITGS Committee. On 3, we will hold the motion in committee and ask the Ethics Commission to report back at our January meeting. So without objection,
just one little quick thing here, just the city attorney. I was thinking, I asked the planning department on a notice to hold up until the first of the year, the 8th of January. They said, no, we got to do it the 8th of December. So in my mind, Herb, I thought, there's certain points of time, like between Thanksgiving and New Year's, where a lot of people are off or people are busy doing other things. There's a time in August. I'm going to come back, Mr. Chair, with another motion to see if there's some times that we blank out so we don't require the public to come here, because it may be inconvenient to them. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mr. City Attorney? We'll talk to Avak. He'll understand, and then you could say if it's legal or not. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm glad Avak will be able to understand.
You will understand. That's what he's referring to.
Okay, so that brings us to item 1, is it?
Item number 1 are reports from the city attorney and the City Essex Commission relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code to clarify the contract bidder restrictions and fundraising restrictions that were brought up in the election earlier this year.
Okay, I have one public comment card. I'll ask, is it Angelique Cronin? Close enough. I'll ask you to come up and then we'll get staff. And if you could pronounce your name correctly so next time I see you I won't butcher it.
Sure. Angelique Kronheim.
I was real close.
Oh, yeah, not bad.
I'm impressed.
Thanks.
Please, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm the Los Angeles organizer with California Common Cause. The following comments are the official organization of California Common Cause's position and the California Clean Money Campaign. When we campaigned for Measure H, there was huge support from voters, volunteers, coalition partners for the full bidder ban fundraising proposal. And then 75% of the vote shows that voters are enthused about the broad fundraising ban on bidders rather than the narrow ban proposed by the city attorney. However, we would support increasing the threshold in the city attorney's ordinance language for unsolicited proposals. Section 49.7, I think it's 30B6, from $100,000 to $1 million, because it's important that large unsolicited proposals for which there's no competitive business process be covered. But we want to make sure that there's smaller unsolicited proposals from people like ordinary homeowners aren't burdened. So again, we would stand with the LA City Ethics Commission and ask for the full fundraising ban, but those are our positions on the city attorney's proposal.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
All right. If I could have the department and the city attorney's office please come forward, and good morning to you both.
Good morning. Yes, good morning.
All right. Anybody want to, city attorney? Anybody want to say anything?
Good morning, Deputy City Attorney Renee Stottle. As you know, this item is before you. It was heard in council and referred back to committee. The item that's before you are actually two ordinances, Ordinance A and Ordinance B. The only difference between the two ordinances, as you know, is the definition of fundraising. Ordinance A is a narrower definition of prohibited fundraising, and
Gremlins, that's what-
and Ordinance B is a broader restriction. We signed off as to form and legality as to Ordinance A, but not Ordinance B, because we think there's a significant risk of that a court would conclude that a broad fundraising ban would be found not to be in keeping with the First Amendment based on case law out of the Second Circuit in consideration of prior California analysis of similar types of restrictions.
Okay. Heather, did you want to?
Yes, good morning. Heather Holt for the Ethics Commission. We support the ordinance in its entirety, Ordinance A in its entirety, except for the proposed definition of prohibited fundraising. We do, from a policy perspective, recommend a broader definition which mirrors one that is in current city law regarding prohibitions on commissioner fundraising. So what is in Ordinance B as the definition of fundraising is currently in the campaign finance ordinance as far as the activities that are prohibited for commissioners when they engage in fundraising. We also, however, from a policy perspective, do feel that having something on the books is extremely important at this point. Regardless of which ordinance we go forward with, we do have contracts that are being let, and we have fundraising windows that are open, and the clarity that one of these ordinances will provide to the public and to the bidders is extremely important at this point.
Okay, thank you. Did you?
And just to follow up on that, because this was a measure that was voted on by the voters in March and began to have full effect on at least solicited proposals in May, it is very important that we have an implementing ordinance in place that deals with the administrative details, which is primarily what the ordinance does.
Well, let's do that today.
And get it in place so we're not in a situation where we face potential legal challenges because our language is vague and arguments between successful and unsuccessful bidders.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you guys have any questions? Well, let me indicate to you that my staff has been in communication with the Ethics and the City Attorney's Office, and we have an amendment that we think clears everything up. And, young man, if you would do that voodoo that you do so well and
Could I just ask
read
a
into the record the amendment. Yes, you can ask a question.
When you're done, are you? We're
Yeah, I was just getting ready to have him read the
No,
amendment.
I just want to ask a question. See, I'm out and I'm in the community, and people challenge me and they say, well, you take contributions, which I do. But they're ethical contributions because you approve each and every one of them. And also everything's on a site that people could get to. Now, what this does would restrict someone who is, let's say, bidding on a public works project, and they gave you a contribution. That's the key there that you're looking at. What if someone's, I just want to ask the question, what if someone's known you a long time, and all of a sudden they get in it, then they disqualify themselves from being able to participate in the process? That's what the Ethics Commission suggests.
Well, that's what the charter says, actually,
I got
at
it.
this point, is
Yeah.
that, yes, even if someone has a long-standing personal relationship with you, once they become a bidder or a subcontractor of $100,000 or more, then the restrictions on the contributions would apply.
Right. What do you see in the future? Who's going to donate to people running for office?
Well,
What do you want to see?
Well, anyone who is legally able to donate. There are all sorts of people who don't engage in contracting with the city, and those contributions are permissible unless they are lobbying entities.
Right. But I guess developers, though, let me just ask this question here. We take contributions and list them from developers. They also engage in building in our community. They also may work with build a public works building. Would they be violated from donating? are excluded from donating?
For a limited period of time, they would be, if they bid on a contract that's worth $100,000 or more, they would be prohibited from giving to or engaging in prohibited fundraising for a person who is running for or who holds an office that
Does
is
that include
required
office
to
holder
approve.
accounts?
I'm sorry?
Does it include office holders' accounts?
It does.
Right.
It does.
Okay, all right, that's all right. And let's say the CRA, let's say there's a project you have, the CRA supports it, is that the same? Or would that be a little different? I mean, the CRA works with your development company, and they like their council person, and they give her a donation. Is that illegal?
I don't think the CRA bids on contracts, so
Okay.
And
They do get, but the developer may get a relationship with the city because they were the awardee of a new theater in North Hollywood, let's say, something like that. I'm trying to.
one of the issues, and it's particularly with the development, on the development side, most development agreements do not result as a part of a competitive process. There are some that do. My understanding is mostly they exist currently at the CRA. This provision doesn't have any application on its own to the CRA because it's a separate legal entity.
I got it. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure so everybody knows that on this deal. Now, Heather, you know what was the first incident that caused about to create what we call the Ethics Commission?
yes, I have an inkling of
Right.
what that was.
On Broadway?
Oh, I was
Broadway
thinking it was a
and Sunset?
1090 issue.
No, it was a zone change issue for a bank, and it's still a vacant parking lot, I think, right there, which brought about the need. All I'm just saying, I think you should talk, I don't like that there's focus sometimes that because you take donations that you're a bad person. This is the process that is very important to help. I was thinking, could they give it to the Ethics Commission and then, as far as the donation, if they wanted to help a candidate? I don't know. I'm not going to get into that now. But I think we should know the history. And then also it should be very stated so people can look to it in every public library and every public building like this one to check out so they know. It's a participation of the public in the process of electing. And so it's not like, tag, you're a bad guy because you take donations.
Absolutely. We wholeheartedly agree. The public needs to participate in the process. Being a developer is not a bad thing. Making campaign contributions or accepting campaign contributions is not a bad thing. There are just some restrictions that we place to avoid the appearance of impropriety.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Labange. And I think within a couple of months or so, we're going to have a discussion about possible changes and recommendations and things of that nature. So I think we're going to have a very active, realistic discussion.
Good.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that said,
There are a number of proposed amendments to the draft form of Ordinance A that this committee is considering. Upon the committee's action, it may wish to instruct the city's attorney's office to submit a new draft with that's substantially the same as Amendment A with the following amendments. In Section 49.7.3, it would clarify Section A.4 to clarify that solicitations from proposed city contracts that rely on other city agencies' competitive processes that are not subject to the restriction of the prior contract. If it was subject to the charter restriction, it is not subject to the restrictions of this section. In Section A.5, it would clearly state that the term also includes the selection of a pre-qualified list of people to contract with the city, where there is an RFQ that includes a not-to-exceed amount of at least $100,000. In Section 8.8, it would change Section C to apply the definition of principal to an individual employee of the bidder or subcontractor that is authorized by the bid or proposal to represent the person for the city. In Section 8.9, it would change the definition of those who are prohibited from fundraising from those being invited to attend an event to those that attend an event. And it would make similar changes throughout the rest of the ordinance from those that are invited to an event to those that attend an event. It makes minor technical corrections to the language to change the terms of a subcontractor to subcontractors throughout the proposed item as well. In section A.10, it clarifies that a subcontractor would include subtenants on city contracts where the subtenant is required to pay the contractor at least $100,000. Moving on to section 5 of the item, it would add a clarifying sentence or phrase that notes that the item does not apply to any subsequent amendments once a contractor has complied with this charter section. It would eliminate section 6, which is related to unsolicited proposals. On section C of 49.7.3, it would add a section that provides an awarding authority, or provides that an awarding authority may, on a sole source contract for a patented or patent pending trademark or copyright item, make a written finding that notwithstanding the complete disclosure form was not submitted, the contract is still in the best interest of the city. And finally, moving on to section 49.7.31 of the municipal code, it would change the definitions under A1 to, again, reflect the previous language on changing those that are invited to an event to those that attend an event.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. So then this will go back into your shop and you'll redraft the ordinance, and I'm optimistic that when we do bring this to council, as soon as, we can, because we do need to act, that we'll be on the same page.
I think we'll be on the same page.
Oh, wonderful. Then without objection, we will adopt the draft ordinance, A, with the amendments, ask the city attorney's office to revise the draft ordinance with the changes. Is there any more business before this committee?
No, sir, there is not.
Then what do you think we should do?
I think we should adjourn this meeting.
Well, based on your recommendation, this committee is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.